Hi there, everybody. Welcome to episode 3 of Iron Men, where we are discussing the 12 Ships by Jamil Fraser. My name is Tom. I am the facilitator of this group, and we're happy to have everybody here. For those of you that are here live and those that will be watching on rewatch, welcome. I encourage you to pick up the book by Jamil if you haven't already and give it a read. We'll talk a little bit about what this meeting does and what it's supposed to do, but it does not replace reading the book. So we encourage you guys to go out and get that book. You have the slides still up on the screen, yeah, guys? No? All right, let me see that. Now? Okay. All right, I see what I have to do now. Okay, so here we go. Shift number 3, find your land of plenty. First of all of us are returners, so I'll go through this quickly, but I like to put this at the top of every meeting. Little meeting principles. We limit crosstalk, remain muted except when sharing. We avoid divisive issues, things like politics, religion, and we share from our experience, here to sharpen, not to fix each other. The meeting's broken into 4 pillars: story, study, support, and share. What the meeting is not. It is not a teaching. I'm not here to teach. I'm here to discover along with you guys. That'll be especially evident tonight as we get into this shit. It's not a soapbox for personal issues or my feelings or anybody else's to get up and aggrandize. It's not a substitute for reading the text, as I said. It is not a negative space. It is not a sales tool for Optavia. But it is group-led, discussion-based, interactive, welcoming, honest, and positive. And we're going to start off with the story part of our night. Actually, first, just for the benefit of everyone who might be watching, let's jump in and introduce ourselves. And also, what's the last movie you saw in a movie theater? Which with COVID, that may be a harder thing to think of. I see John puzzling already. So mine was Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. I just watched it Sunday with the wife. So that's me. Alan?
Hey, I'm Alan. I think the last movie I saw in the theater was called Moonfall.
Oh, okay.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah, Roland Emmerich, I think.
Yeah.
Very good. John?
John Hanley.
Hanley, I'm sorry, yes.
Oh, sorry.
So yeah, John Hanley. I live in the Dominican Republic. I live 5 hours from a movie theater. So I think the last one I saw, we took the kids over Christmas to the Capitol and we watched the Minions. One of the, I don't know, Minions 3, maybe.
Did you see Encanto?
Oh. We took him to see Encanto.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will answer for you.
Thank you.
All right, Pat.
Pretty sure the last one I saw, I think, was in theaters. I think was Batman. It's been a while. I'm not gonna lie. I think it was Batman, like the most recent one.
Oh, the Batman. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a dark motion picture, man. Literally, just I'm like, is there anything happening on the screen right now? Because it's solid black.
Yeah. No, a lot of it was. Yeah.
Mr. Irwin.
Do I really have to admit what I went and saw in the theater?
Well, I don't know. It's a family channel. So.
Well, it was a family movie. It was Addams Family 2, the animated movie.
How do you know the wrong with that? Love the Addams Family.
Last year we did a Halloween family group costume, and it was based on the Addams Family. I was Uncle Fester.
Makes sense.
So
I see it.
we all went and saw the movie together.
Nice. All right. Now we are ready for Alan's story. So Alan has graciously decided or volunteered to share his story today. Alan, the floor is yours.
Okay. So I'm Alan Rieger, and I have had the distinct pleasure of having had significant weight loss 2 times in my lifetime. When I was young, I was kind of pencil thin up until about the end of 4th grade. And then I became a bodybuilder and added a lot of mass between the age of 10 and the age of 18. I had more than doubled my weight up to about 200 pounds. then spent the summer doing landscaping work and literally worked my backside off. So I started college 60 pounds lighter than where I started the summer. But the thing is that at that point at age 18, I hadn't learned anything about keeping weight off. I hadn't learned anything about why I built that body that big in the first place. So while I was on college campus, I was active. I was eating the food that was there. I didn't gain weight. I'd come home on break. I'd gain a pound a day every day while I was home and go back to campus heavier, and continued to grow into my 30s and 40s. And somehow when I got into my 50s, it wasn't coming off anymore. I had been looking at a health insurance and life insurance rate that was increased because of my body mass, and was a little bit annoyed about that for a while, but I could not get my weight down below the number that would get me a price break. And the woman who became my coach with what at the time was the Take Shape for Life plan, which then became Optavia, was in a networking group with me for 3 years. So to talk about being beaten over the head with a stick for a while before you say yes, I knew exactly what she did, but I was fine. I didn't need to lose weight, except for when I needed to go up and down the stairs. So then I had to do math in my head. I'm going up these stairs, what's going with me? Because I'm only going to do this so many times today. My son was about 7 or 8 years old when I started the plan. He had never been able to put his arms completely around me to give me a hug. I have a picture of the first time that his fingers were locked together around my waist when I started losing weight. I dropped from about 2.25 down to about 162 over the course of 6 months. Predictably, consistently, because I got into fat burn one time and I stayed there. I was a rule follower from way back. I just followed the rules and did the thing. And when I got to the point where it was time to do transition and get into maintenance, I've been pretty good about staying in a range, although that range has kind of expanded a little bit more recently because the habits that we build are as focused as we are with them. You know, when I was working out 3, 4, 5 times a week on the treadmill and with some dumbbells in the basement, and I'm not talking about, you know, trying to do powerlifting. I'm not talking about sprinting, just walking and light dumbbells. I reached a point back in 2020 where I was down to my lightest adult human weight. And that was way cool, because instead of wearing men's relaxed fit pants that were 2 inches too small in the waist and having the Huskies for men pants, I got into slim fits. And the biggest challenge at that point in my life was when I would lean against a door to go outside and the wind was blowing and the darn door didn't move, and I had to dig in with both feet and push. But I could push. And I run up and down the stairs instead of doing the math in my head. As far as getting into coaching and helping other people with it, I was very good at referring to my coach because I had another business that I was involved in. And I really didn't want the responsibility of being a coach until I looked at it from the point of view of the give back and pay it forward kind of thing. There is something amazing about being on the phone with someone as their coach and hearing the success that they're having as a client, and knowing that they probably weren't going to be there on their own, that the conversations we've had together, the things we've built for them have helped them to get there. So now I have clients that I'm sending them their before and after pictures from prior progress, going, hey, just to help you see again how far you've come, because we can easily forget how far we've come. And that's been very well received. And it's the celebration of like John getting called out the other morning on the morning show. You know, it's not often that we get recognized for the changes that we've made that we weren't seeing for ourselves. And when we forget about it and someone else kind of taps you on the shoulder and says, hey, yeah, I'm all in with that. So That's what I got. I coach because it's a little bit of extra money for my family. It's the possibility of growing into something bigger. And it is an absolute thrill to help other people do what I've done. And it keeps me on track when that range wants to creep to pull me back in and get me refocused and keep me in the plan. That's what I got.
Awesome. Thank you, Alan. Yeah, relate to a lot of that. In fact, I started back into fat burn today because that range got a little bit too much for where I wanted it to be. And not gonna let that happen. All right. Let's move on to Jamil. Hey, he's with us. As we begin our shift number 3, find your land of plenty. And we have see there? Yes, Tim is there. Hi, Tim. Good to see you. So tonight, kind of the sum of the book is rethinking our dysfunctional relationship with money. I'm going to start off by reading on page 55 from the book. He says, we're all raised in a society that has a lot of issues with this thing called money. For most of us, I have found that we are essentially trained from a very young age to have a weird dysfunctional relationship with this thing that isn't even, in a sense, tangibly real. Money is just as real as it is a figment of our imaginations, an invisible bartering tool that carries different emotional value based on how much or how little of it we possess. And I had a hard time with this chapter and this shift because I do have and still do have a weird dysfunctional relationship with money. And so I spent a lot of time thinking today and this week about what is my money story. So I thought maybe we'd go quickly around, and if you want to share your first memory of money, like for my wife's, it's a she had a piggy bank and somebody broke in and sold the piggy bank corner, and that's her first memory of money. But not to belabor the point or to take a whole lot of time with this, but if you want to share your money story, I would love to hear it. Mine, John and I were actually talking a little bit earlier tonight, John Hanley and I, and remarkably similar, John. I think my money story is I don't have a money story. It was just there. I never really took it for granted or never really needed it. We were squarely middle class as I was growing up. I never was in want of anything. We had TVs and we had Atari Pong when it came out, and but we were certainly by no means wealthy, but it just was never a thing. And to me, to this day, it is still not a thing. But I do very much relate to the idea of rich people are bad, because I've had a lot of experience with rich people who are awful people. And so that's when I think about, well, I could be one of those people. Ugh, I don't want to be one of those people. So that's my money story and some of the issues I'm working with. Would somebody else like to share briefly your money story?
Yeah, I'll share. I really, like you said, Thom, I don't have a money story. I mean, my parents were, again, middle class people. They, I mean, I can remember my mom would do crafts to help get my brother and sister and I through college. Just working hard. I mean, I was one, even in my older years, not really focused on money so much. I mean, I worked in a ministry for about 4 years, and I made minimum wage $7.25. I mean, I got room and board there, but I never really focused on money in my life. And my parents were never that way. I mean, my grandfather was from the Depression, and we were just never, really focused on it. I mean, we worked hard. My parents worked very hard. And I had this chapter was a little bit, I don't want to say just not of the 3 chapters so far, not my favorite, because, I think I'm towards the middle, I think you said about your circle. You know, that kind, I don't want to say rub me the wrong way, but I don't know. I don't know what words I want to use. I don't think your circle of friends are going to make or break you as a person. And that's almost what I felt a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
No,
that
it's a
just-
solid point, and we'll talk about that when we get to that idea of circles for sure. But thanks for sharing, and we'll, yeah, I'm right there with you. Somebody else.
Yeah, I've got one. I grew up in a small town in the Lehigh Valley where people were either employees of the Bethlehem Steel or executives for the Bethlehem Steel. And my father was one of the employees. So money in that regard was the measure of, did you go to the country club pool or did you go to the local community pool? And the folks at the country club very rarely invited the people from the community pool to come and be a part of their community. It's not that we were lacking. We always had what we needed. And our grandparents who had been through Depression times would definitely tell us that we had plenty of things that they didn't ever have. So it wasn't a matter of whether or not you could acquire things, but being responsible with money, having the ability to generate enough to pay the bills and to cover that kind of thing. I come from a background of, we will go out and we will meet our obligations and we will find a way. So, and I realized in reading this chapter and thinking about it that I had my first self-employment with a newspaper job back at a paper route at age 17. I actually had a checking account at 17 because I was self-employed and doing the collections, and you were a middleman with the paper. So it was an interesting thing to take a look at. Toward Timothy's statement about, you know, who you hang out with doesn't decide whether or not you have a good life. But the question is, are people using their money to help other people, or are people using their money to just help themselves? And that was a good question.
Awesome. John has his hand raised.
And I was also muted. So yeah, my money story, I think, is when, you know, shortly after I got married, realizing that people have different thoughts on money. Because like you said, I just grew up not really thinking about it. My parents didn't really include me in any money issues. I didn't know if there was, you know, lack or abundance. But after being married for a year or so, we bought our first house and we're moving in, and it had a fireplace in Florida, which is kind of strange, but had a fireplace. And we were at the grocery store, and my wife, Melissa, says, go get one of those Duraflame logs or whatever it is. So I went and grab it and come back, and she says, how much was it? I don't know. You said, go get a Duraflame log. I grabbed a log. And she says, what I meant was, go get it, go look, see how much it is. If it's not too expensive, then get it. So, you know, that's been part of, you know, that realizing that, okay, wait, people have different opinions and thoughts on money, and adjusting to that.
Awesome. Anybody else want to go before we move on? I think what our money story is goes a lot towards what our relationship with money is today. And so I encourage you, if you haven't, to take some time to think about that and what that is. All right, next up. can you be financially wealthy and still be a good person? It would seem the answer to this is simple, and that it is yes, and of course it is, but I struggle with this. I struggle with, just because, like I said earlier, that I've seen so many examples of people who had a lot of money that were just terrible people. But I also know people who don't have a lot of money that were terrible people. And as I've come to realize that, for me, I can generalize very easily. This group of people is bad. These sorts of folks are awful. And it's easy for me when that's all I know. And Jamil says in the book, all you know is all you know until you know more. So, you know, my primary experience of people with great abundance has been they're not great people. But so I tend to think and equate in my mind that all of them are not good people, when that is obviously not the case. Folks can be good, folks can be bad, they may or may not have money. Can money change somebody? Yeah, absolutely, sure can. But as I'm trying to take a step back, I think I'm reminding myself to not generalize and to have prejudices against people who are wealthy, and that just because I'm seeking wealth doesn't make me a bad person. Anybody else want to weigh in on this one? So next, he talks about the danger of comparison. He goes into great length about talking about his friend, I think it was Graham, is that his name? Who had all of the things, and this is, again, what I was just talking about. This is where he met somebody who was one of the haves and was actually a really good and kind person. But he got into trouble when he's comparing. And then he got into a lot of trouble when he talks about comparing his dream house and buying the dream house before he was ready, and getting an offer from a woman who then sold her house, and then he had to go back and cancel the whole deal. Wow, that was rough to have to go through that, and the dangers of comparison. He then spends a lot of time talking about priorities, and this, I think, is really key on what are the priorities. Those of us who are coaches run into this a lot when people say, well, I can't afford to be on the program. And then on Facebook, they're taking trips, they're going to shows, they're doing all of these things. And it's, you know, it can be hard to point out to them, like, look, you obviously do have the money, you're just choosing not to spend it on your health. And one thing, Billy, who on this call last week, and one of my clients said he had a huge revelation of what's it like to live for the future and to eat for the future and not for today, that delayed gratification that Jamil talks about in the book of putting things off. And then this brings it to the next point, as I'm trying to work through this for myself, of, is it about money or is it about motivation? And was it Alan? I think you said, you know, you have the money, but what are you doing with it? Are you having money for money's sake? Or maybe that was limited, but money for money's sake, or are you helping people with that money? I work at the Florida Aquarium, which is a nonprofit organization, but we charge money to come and see the animals and to do things. And we have a statement where we say, no margin, no mission. If we're not bringing in money, we can't affect the environment, do all the coral research that we do, help rehabilitation of sea turtles, teach school children about the importance of education and the wonders of the ocean. We can't do any of that if we're not bringing in money. So again, money itself is not the evil thing here. Let me get some, I've been talking a lot. Let me get some of these other guys. Talking about what is your motivation? We all make money. Why do we make money? Why do you make money?
I mean, I guess just, well, for right now, just to be able to like live life in a way, because unfortunately you kind of need money to do a lot of things. So for me right now, the motivation for money is just to live life as of right now.
Pat,
And to do what I,
let me ask you, Pat.
Yeah.
If money was no object, you had the money, what would you do with that money?
I just had it.
Yeah, you just have. No, you got an open blank check.
Okay. I would probably visit around the world, go to different places. I like to travel. I like to see new things, love nature. Probably just do whatever possible experiences I can have. For instance, I would love to go to every single football stadium, baseball stadium would be cool. Heck, even hockey if I have that much money. Yeah, just like I said, just kind of travel, visit around the world, and just try to experience things.
Nice.
So, yeah.
John Irway, same question. If you had $2 million, what would you do?
Just 2 million?
Yeah.
Put that in the bank. No, well, certainly I'd pay off all debts that I have. I would get my parents both a new car and probably try to at least pay off their house. Do a little bit of travel, and then, invest, put it away for the future.
Cool.
But if it was more than 2 million, if like it was unlimited, like you gave to Billy, then my whole focus of where my energy goes every day will change, because I would be able to just follow those passions of wanting to make sure that I'm helping people, that I'm creating something.
Right. Yeah, $2 million doesn't last like it used to. All right, John Hanley has his hand up.
Yeah, well, so this is a weird chapter for me just because of, my job. Isn't a job. So my money shift in that regard happened really, 13, 14 years ago when we, changed our life and moved on to the mission field, because we had to go from a mindset of being employees and working and earning our money as a traditional employee to move to a mind shift of now we're receiving donations and we're able to do what we do because of the donations we receive, including an income for our personal needs as well. So that was a huge mindset shift to be able to go from, I earn my money based on the efforts I put into a job and receive a salary back from that, to now this other shift. So my money shift in that regard happened, long ago, and doesn't really match with a traditional job mindset now. So that's kind of, but in the shift concept, that's when my shift happened to what we do now. And my money story now is more involved in, how am I using the funds that were donated? Am I using it correctly? And then with social media and all of that, keeping the perception of, okay, how do other people feel about how we're using money as donors? And that's more of a clay issue than a money issue for me in that regards right now.
Yeah,
Other people's perceptions.
It's a real thing. I mean, I know missionaries who, when they come back to the States, have to be very careful about what they put on social media, because they don't want to appear that they are being frivolous and spending money, even if it's money they have from an inheritance or if they have money from other things, that they're going out and doing fun things and going fun places, that people might think, oh, how can they do that? They're missionaries. They can't afford They shouldn't be able to afford that, and are they using my money to go do that? And they have to be very, very careful about that, and almost hide what they do on social media, which is crazy. And it's part of this, again, our everyone's weird relationship with money. All right, Tim's got his hand up.
Probably if I had money, which I don't have right now, but I would probably fix up our house. I mean, not that our house is in shambles or anything like that, but there's things we want to do to the house. Insulate our attic. Probably do some stuff at my parents' house. They have a porch falling off the back of their house, not falling off, but it's been there about 25 years. You know, I'd help them out, putting a porch in the back. Maybe if we had that money, we'd build a house of their own up there, you know, or just, and maybe help out the boarding home I worked at, renovate some of their buildings that they have. They need some work there. So that's basically what I would do. I'd try to help other people, improve ourselves and help others. So,
Yeah, awesome. When I asked this question myself, you know, I've written a full-length musical that I would love to take and put on stage on Broadway. I'd love to see that happen if money was no object. I'd love to set my son up for generational wealth. I'd love for that to be a thing where he didn't have to worry about it. And travel. So, you know, as I'm making this shift, and I think we got everyone but Alan. Alan, did you want to jump in on this? I think you're the only one who hasn't.
The question about if I had unlimited funds.
Yeah.
You know, that is one of those questions that always makes my brain tickle a little bit. I have lived my entire life in the world of you can be anything you want to be. Great. What do I want to be? Money can define us if we let it. But money, when it doesn't matter at all, then it becomes being a human being instead of being a human doing. And I just am where I am. Jamil's superpower that really impresses me is his ability to have conversations and listen to people and not talk about himself. And that is a skill set that I would love to spend some time cultivating. And if there's not even the perception of a need to generate money to cover bills because they're just covered, it's an awful lot more freedom to do an awful lot more stuff and explore maybe where that goes as far as what do you want to do? That's, I think, the best answer I've got right now.
Right. Yeah, thank you. That leads kind of well into my conclusion for myself on this was just, you know, it's not money for money's sake. I want to produce the show. I want to travel and see the world. I want to do these big things. That's why I need money, right? Not the idea of amassing personal wealth and buying a bunch of nice stuff for myself, but the idea of doing things that matters, of, you know, helping with charities, of helping with you know, homelessness and things like that would all be things that I would hope that I would do if I had that kind of money. And so for me, it goes back to the aquarium and no margin, no mission. I want to do these things. How am I going to do it? What do you want and how are you going to get it? It's what I ask myself most days. And it's no different with money. Money is a tool, not the means. So the next thing I want to talk about is this idea of the circle that Tim brought up. So this was probably for me the most troubling part of the chapter. And discomfort is okay. We're going to lean into discomfort. I think in the when we go back to that last, I think it was the last one where Jamil talks about it's your fault, everything's your fault. You guys remember that one? That's a discomforting place to be, and I think he did it absolutely intentionally. He wanted us to be uncomfortable. He chose those words to create in the reader that itch, that discomfort, that I'm not buying this. Because at the end he says, okay, fine, don't call it your fault. Call it whatever you want to call it, but you have to fix the problem. And so he took us through that discomfort on purpose so that we get to the end of that chapter and we realize what he's saying there. And I think this may be a little bit of that. This is uncomfortable, but let's lean into the discomfort. And I did some more reading and looking at, I've been doing some reading and listening to podcasts on Stoicism, and Ryan Holiday, who wrote the book The Obstacle is the Way, and he's the next author I'm going to dive into. I've already gotten on his podcast and YouTube channel, but he quotes basically that you are the average of the 5 people that you spend time with. And that's Jim Rohn who said that as well, who Jamil talks a lot. But this is also something that you see in Stoicism. But in listening to Ryan, he talked about the same thing. It was just very serendipitous that it came up today. He said this includes podcasts you listen to. The 5 people you spend time with doesn't necessarily have to be people that you hang out with in person in this day and age. Mentors that you have online, podcasts, YouTube videos, things like that that you're in contact with. So these are the people in your circle. Now, my biggest reaction to this idea of hanging out with millionaires and you're going to be a millionaire is that I don't know any millionaires and probably not going to run into any at the aquarium. And even if I did, that for me is not the criteria of people that I want to hang around with. I want to hang around with people who are good people, who are positive people, who are creative people like me, who have similar interests to me, not identical, but I can have a conversation with. That's how I pick my friends, and that's probably why I chafe the most against this circle here. All right, enough of me. Tim, you had issues with this circle. Am I hitting some of those buttons?
Yeah, I've never, I guess for me, I've never been around rich people. I mean, that's why it didn't resonate with me, or maybe turned me the wrong. I don't know. I mean, the people I hang with in my small group from church, no, none of them are, I just enjoy being with them. I enjoy where I work. I enjoy those people. I enjoy my family. And it just, I don't know, it kind of not, I don't want to say raped against my spirit. That's a strong word. But I found it hard to get a grasp on that.
Right.
Maybe that's just how I,
Yeah.
like, I never hung around rich people. So that's just never been my lifestyle.
Right. Right. And, I think out of fairness with Jamil when he had the shift, he's working at a Fortune 500 company. He's surrounded by CEOs and doctors all day long. A lot of us don't have that. And that's why for me, I kind of shifted away from just money, but the people that you surround yourself, what are they depositing into your life? is there toxicity? Is there abuse? Is there negativity? Because if there is, that's what they're depositing in your life. So your surroundings, and Dr. A talks about this as a healthy habit, your surroundings determine a lot about your makeup. Is it just me and Tim? Anybody else feeling this thing with the circle of friends?
Oh, Alan.
I'm thinking about what you brought up about the podcast that we listened to, the impact of, are you listening to talk radio? What shows are you watching on the television? Or what is your total circle of what's coming in? It's the garbage in, garbage out kind of thing. We can find people who are going to educate us and motivate us and give us a whole lot of stuff that can lead to generating a different lifestyle, different mindset, and potentially more money to go with that, without necessarily being in the room with the people that already have that money. And the question is, are you having the experience that Jamil is describing in the book of being in these education environments where they're doing one-on-one or group work, and you're partnered up with the person who says, yeah, I'm making $8+ million a year, and that's just one of the people that you're rubbing elbows with that weekend? Or do you have a mentorship, a follow, somebody that is giving you good information that's going to lead you down that path, or the ability to produce that path in your life elsewhere?
Yeah,
if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's definitely, it's an accumulation.
I was going to say, if I'm the average of the 5 people I spend the most time with, I'm a middle schooler. And Melissa my wife might agree with that statement some days, but but also, when you include these other things, that helps a little bit. If you include books you're reading and people you're speaking to, that helps. But it's also, to me, it was a thought of the chicken and the egg. Am I hanging out with these people, because of, because I have a certain income, or is my friend group changing as my income would go up if I could do that? So I don't know. It was a little weird to me to say, hang around rich people to be rich is almost what it sounded like. I don't think it rubs off like that.
Yeah, well, I think if you boil it down to its simplest denominator, that's what it's saying. But I don't think it's more. I don't think it's that. John, Irwin.
So yeah, I mean, forgive me. You have 80% of my attention. I'm also trying to do something else at the same time here. So if this has already been discussed, I do apologize. But what I do like, and I think it was Jamil that talks about this, is that, spending the time around the people is influential to our way of thinking. And if we don't have those, like, the millionaires, the successful kinds of people that we can physically be in contact with, then we do have options as far as, like, reading books, listening to podcasts. We can still get influence from those people, even if they're not actually in our sphere of friends per se. But I will say that, kind of like you, John, the maturity level of the people I'm around, it wears off very quickly on me. I find myself, when I'm around other very, very sarcastic people, my sarcastic sense of humor just explodes. And then I end up hurting the people around me that don't get the sarcasm. Or if I'm around super driven people, then I tend to be super or much more driven. Or if I'm around people that are always complaining about, work or whatever, I find myself very susceptible to the people I'm spending the most time around. So I'm going to stop talking now.
No, and I think that's kind of the point. You are a sum of the people, the 5 people you spend the most time with. And again, going back to the idea of healthy surroundings. You know, what's coming in your windows, what's coming in, what kind of things are being breathed into your life, and you definitely, you're going to take on those effects. So, you know, there have been times where I have had toxic friendships, and I just had to, at one point, you know, after 20 years of friendship, say, that's it. I'm not going to be your friend anymore, because I cannot deal with what you bring into my life. And it's important to look at, for us to be aware of who we're around, what's going on, and to hang out, or to spend time, or to listen to people that maybe we aspire to be, or who we who we respect. And those are the kind of surroundings. So yeah, that's good discussion, guys. Thank you. The last thing he talks about is shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset. And I kind of just summed it up with this statement here. When we say we can't afford something, it's not a lack of money, it's a lack of development. And we need to do our own push-ups. We need to do the work to grow, to change, to evolve, to build in ourselves these principles that we can then turn around, and if we're in coaching, then it's going to help us in our coaching, or whatever your field is in, it's going to lead to advancement. And that's what's going to help us to make that shift. So this is definitely still a work in progress for me. I'm not there 100%, but I will, or even 80%, but I will kind of sum it up with this quote from page 82. We can use the tool of money for good, to improve our families and communities' lives, to give back and to serve. And I'd like you to join me in that amazing place. You are created to expand, grow, and live in abundance. Live into that mindset, cultivate your inner circle, begin to retell your money story, and begin asking, how can I afford this? So really an interesting chapter, thought-provoking chapter, and I'm grateful for its inclusion in this book. Any more thoughts on this shift before we move on to our support section?
I got a lot out of, you know, the story of his son.
Right.
You know, he wanted something. He wanted to have that party. And one I highlighted it. I don't have the book. I have it on my Kindle. Was Ezra's party too expensive? That's a trick question. Too expensive is a limited mindset. Could he afford it? Yes. By simply moving to asking, how can I afford it? And sticking to his plan with determination and grit. So, you know, I thought that illustration of the son was very, I got a lot out of that one.
Yeah. And for those that haven't read the book, he's 7 years old. He wants to have a birthday party that cost a couple of $100s. And so he went out and at 7 years old, built a lemonade stand, and then coached his friends to do the same, and had a whole downline of lemonade stands. John, Irwin.
I'm just curious if anyone else, when you either read that or listened to it the first time, thought, man, what a waste of money. Or what a waste of an opportunity. The kid goes out and earns all this money and he's going to blow it on some silly party. Like, I mean, that was my initial gut reaction. I see where Jamil's going with it, but that kind of, I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just silly.
No, I hear you. But when he says, is it too expensive? That's a tricky question. I think it's a moral question. I think it's a question where we put ethics and judgment into that, like, oh, he shouldn't spend that much money on a party. When of course he can spend that much money on a party if that's where he wants to spend the money. and we also, it's kind of like the missionaries coming back to go home. You know, maybe he raised $1,000 and gave 500 of it to charity. We don't know the whole story. But the idea of a kid having our own birthday party, if he can afford that money legally, if he can raise that money, you know, ethically, and sure, why not? I did get a little nervous when he starts talking about knockoff Harry Potter wands, because I used to work for Universal, so I'm like, hey, that's our licensing. What are you doing? But but anyway, thanks for that, guys. All right, next up, we're going to Chef Jeff Irway, John Irway, not Chef Jeff, Chef John. Alice Springs Chicken. Tell us a little bit about Alice Springs Chicken.
Have any of you guys had this one yet or made it? Timothy has. So it really is a very, very good recipe, and it's very simple. Tom had the recipe, so I don't know if that's up or whatever, but you can find it all over the Change group. But it's basically just, you take some chicken, grill it with some salt, pepper, and garlic. You have some sauteed peppers and mushrooms, some turkey bacon, and that G. Hughes barbecue sauce that's sugar-free. Put it all on top of the grilled chicken with some cheese on there, throw it in the oven until it melts and bubbles into goodness. And it's amazing. Now, I'll say a couple of things. The recipe, the way it uses the mushrooms and peppers isn't enough for a full serving of your greens. And because I'm really lazy, I didn't want to make another serving of greens. So I just added extra peppers and mushrooms to get what I needed for that. And I also found that the quality of the chicken provided by our supermarket, which is a Wegmans, it's very surprisingly, I dislike the quality now. Something's changed during COVID. It's like chewy and stringy. So what I do now is, excuse me, I'll take the chicken and I will pound it with our tenderizer. I have one of those, you know, pointy metal things that and beat the living daylights out of it until it's nice and flat, but then throw it on the grill. It grills up real quick, and man, it's good, and it reheats well too. So you can do a whole bunch of those and have them for lunch or dinner or whatever it is you're doing for your lean and green for the coming week. So highly recommended.
And you guys can see it up there, yes? We're still on the screen? Yeah, so that looks pretty good. All right.
Have you
Okay,
tried
so
that with any
next-
spicy?
Go ahead.
Have you tried that with any hots?
Oh yeah, you definitely throw some stuff on it.
My,
Jalapenos on there.
Yeah, my wife does not do spicy at all, so I haven't yet, but that would be a very tempting thing. I love putting hot sauce on stuff. But yeah, jalapenos or maybe even a couple ghost peppers in there.
Look out.
We could go. Let's do it.
All right, guys. Last up, well, is next up. Thursday, December 1st, shift 4, growth equals pain. Yay. Looking forward to that and to going through this with you guys and with everyone else who is watching. I'm going to stop recording here in just a second, but just again, thank you for joining us, and hopefully you got something out of this. We will put everything up on the YouTube channel and in the guides, guide number 10 on the change wall. You can find the guides by clicking on the top left corner. There's a drop down menu, guide number 10. That's where we'll post the recipes and links to video, but everything is on the YouTube channel now as far as rewatch. So we'll drive everybody to that YouTube channel, and if anybody wants to share it, I will make sure that that link is in the guides as well. All right, I'm going to stop recording, and we'll be right back.